Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure on this quick episode of REC Insights. I have Phil Millar with Millar Law as a guest, and he has a really interesting story, but he's been with our Canadian military forces. He's been a consultant and since became a lawyer and represents people in various stages of life and life's problems. But he definitely, I had a conversation with him last night on a personal note, and we definitely thought it was a good idea to share some of the insight that he has right now on this COVID-19 crisis and kind of things that are very relevant. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Simeon. Happy to be here, buddy.
We had a quick conversation last night. Mostly, I wanted to share a lot of your insight into, firstly, how serious this is as an outbreak and what that means. Some people are trying to make the situation more positive by not giving it as much weight, which is the wrong thing to do. Some people are trying to make more more negative light out of it because of its severity, which is also a wrong thing. We don't need to be negative, and we just need to be objective. Can you give me a little bit of color as to our conversation from last night?
Yeah, it's a good point. So the media is not the problem. It's the lack of accurate information that's the problem. And so some people want to ignore the reality of the severity of the situation, and other people want to use it for the wrong purposes, as you said. I think a way to look at it is, you put a seatbelt on when you get into your car, but you're not panicked that you're going to crash and be dead.
That's right.
Right? You're taking a security measure that helps you. But the first time you had seatbelts, people didn't want to do it. So this kind of social distancing is like putting on a seatbelt before you drive. We're slowing down the potential spread of this new virus so that our healthcare system can handle it. So although it's serious, it's no reason to panic. Good.
So again, washing hands, common sense, stay home if you don't need to leave the home. Our entire sales force has become a team for what we think is the good. We kind of called every single one of our past clients in the last couple days. And some of our clients are older. Some of them have autoimmune disorders, etc. If some of them were traveling. And we have 30 good people on the ground that, their business slowed down as a result of this crisis. And we asked them, can we, if you're compromised, do you need one of us to run to the store for you and grab you something safely where you don't have to expose yourself to unnecessary action? And people appreciated that. And I think the message is now getting through more and more that it is something not to be taken lightly. And in order to flatten that line, we just got to stay indoors as much as possible and protect kind of the ones that are more vulnerable to it.
It's interesting. You can see who's the real deal in times like this, because, in the real estate agency world, there's a whole bunch of fly-by-night heroes, right, who aren't there for the people when their times are tough. And it sounds like what you guys are doing is the kind of stuff that builds trust over the long run. And same in my law firm.
We're trying to do our little part, right? So
yeah, same in my law firm. Like, I ordered all the lawyers who work for me. I said, you will take any call from any person who has a problem with the landlord, who has retained them or bill them. We just want to give some information to people that helps them stay calm, because there's a lot of legal issues that come out of a crisis like this. Like, I can't pay my rent, I can't pay my employers, my boss is telling me to shake hands. There's an interesting point some of your people might be interested in, is that when the dust settles, if you didn't follow the rules and somebody got the virus and died or was very ill because of it, you're going to be sued. And almost every insurance policy has an exclusion clause for spread of a communicable disease, because they knew this was coming. So employers have to be very careful that they're not doing stuff that puts their employees at risk, because their insurance isn't going to cover them when the lawsuits come after.
So talk about that a little bit more. So let's say somebody works at a car dealership.
That's the exact answer. I took a call this morning, and I called the owner because he, I don't want to say he's politically leaned one way or the other, but he thinks it's a big media hype. And so he told his sales staff, we're not participating in the coronavirus. So you will go out and shake hands and do all of this. And I'm like, and this guy, had a compromised parent and a kid who has asthma. And he called me up, and I was like, I go, just go home. Don't work. I called up the owner and said, look, you're going you're going to be on the hook. You have to follow the recommendation. And people, we're fearful now from now, right? Our behaviors that we do today are going to define us 3 months from now when we come out of it. And the people who are playing games or who are being obnoxious or putting people at risk or who take advantage of the situation, they're going to pay when the courts open back up.
It's true. It's true. In that kind of light, I do want to commend both our government and the private sector for really getting it right. What happened yesterday is the big 6 banks, which obviously they're in close contact with the Canadian government because they rely upon each other to make this economy work. They handle 80% of the money in the country. So they announced yesterday that anybody having issues is going to go through a process that can get kind of mortgage and loan deferrals for up to 6 months and more if required, as it will be revised if necessary. That's a huge positive step. The government, both provincial and federal, are making, commitments and looking at ways that they're going to be able to get small businesses interest-free loans, grants, bursaries, depending on how this goes, to get money and liquidity into people's hands. What's your take on the mortgages, first of all, like the big 6?
No, it's a very positive move to have that financial stability because, for the server who loses her job is not getting tips, right? Her inability to pay the rent means that the landlord can't pay the mortgage, and then if people start panicking. So it provides stability so we can kind of get through what I anticipate to be about a 3-month social distancing period. I think relevant to some of your clients but there are people who have mortgages through B lenders, Home Trust, Equitable, and I haven't heard a position from them, and they're known to be a little bit more predatory. So it'll be interesting to see if they follow that great example or if they try to take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, and I think people should take it upon themselves that if they do experience a predatory or parasitic business circumstance in the middle of what's a global crisis, that they do share that on social media, that they do shed light on people who are acting inappropriate and putting pressure on society's weakest, per se, to accomplish their goals and agenda. Well, yesterday, when we were speaking briefly, you had mentioned there was some impact with family law on your family law side. You saw some pretty crazy things already happening, and we're not even a couple weeks into this thing. Share a little bit of insight on that family law side.
Yeah, unfortunately, crisis really reveals the type of person you are. So, we're, as Martin Luther King said, we're judged by our behaviors, not in convenient times, but in times of crisis. And we have a family law department here, and the amount of ex-spouses who are denying access of coronavirus is really, really troubling. Everybody's experiencing it, but there are some people who are denying access, mostly to dads who see them on the weekends. And they're just beside themselves because they can't see their kids. They're worried. They want to hug their kid. They're not doing anything dangerous, but they're having some games played with them. And it's hard to get in front of the courts because the courts are closed for the most part. So you can get an emergency motion, but that's a window into, sometimes the evil nature of people. But those people aren't doing themselves any favors because when those courts open up again and they get in front of a judge and the judge hears what happened, there could be issues. But conversely, if you have an ex-spouse who's ignoring social distancing and you have 1 week custody, 1 week off, and then your kid tells you that, it's taking them to the mall or amusement parks, then what do you do, right? There's going to be a lot of these human challenges that all of us face. Now,
and that's obviously very serious, but on the other hand, that makes me think, and of course, I'm a real estate broker, so it always goes back to real estate for me, and I apologize. Let's say you needed access to one of your units as an investor, as a landlord, and you suspect that they're beating the place up, or you need access to your unit. Can they deny you access right now?
Well, it would be interesting if they said you can't come in because of the coronavirus. And conversely, you also have landlords who think or hear somebody sick in their units and then try to kick them out or lock them out, right? And now you're going to also think in the context of domestic violence. in densely populated places where people are socially cocooning, you could have a female or kids kind of almost locked in a house with somebody who's abusive. So,
Jesus,
but
yeah.
from the landlord perspective, you want to protect your property, right? And if
Yeah.
you're not showing any signs, you should be able to go around and inspect it. But I don't think you're going to get much success if you try to demand entry because you're just super concerned about damage, right? Damage is not going to be something that's going to allow you to kind of traumatize people. If somebody does do damage, you'll be able to go after them later. But so the landlord, you know, people should be calling their lawyers before they take any actions that could hurt somebody, even if they think they're totally right. And hopefully some of the lawyers are giving, you know, making themselves available to people so they can put them at risk.
Phil, my man, I just wanted to really thank you. I know you have a bunch of interviews lined up with organizations much bigger than ours. So I really wanted to take a quick moment and just verbalize my gratitude for you giving us this insight. I hope you, your family, and everybody in your organization stay safe. Of course, we wish the same for our entire audience, and I hope this was able to give them a little bit of insight and some value as to some of the things to think about during this crisis.
You know, there's a great book, People Have Time. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's really applicable to this crisis. And I'll just end on toilet paper, because everybody is showing their social outrage about toilet paper. But keep in mind that it's just logistics. Toilet paper takes up a huge amount of shelf space. There's not tons of inventory back there. So if 10, 20 people buy toilet paper, the shelves are going to be empty. Doesn't mean humanity is evil. It doesn't mean everything is bad. It's just a logistics thing. Soup takes up less space, right? So before we go showing our moral outrage to everybody, let's just take a second to be rational and give everybody, you know, an air hug. And there's an air hug for you, brother. Take it easy.
Thank you so much, Phil. I really appreciate it. What a great piece of thought, and put that into context. A can of Campbell soup versus 24-pack of Sherman luxury rolls. Good one. Thanks again, Phil. We really appreciate it, pal.
Ciao, brother.
Ciao.